Today, we have with us Mark Turrell, the founder of unDavos, and Stephanie Kiotsukis is the founder of and CEO of Fresh Strategy AI Solutions. Together, they will explore AI in action, what actually works in health sector operations, and through a clear-eyed look at real-world ROIs, practical workflows in pharma and medtech, and a roadmap to escape pilot's purgatory. And with that, I welcome you, Mark and Stephanie. The stage is yours.
Very good. Thank you very much, everybody. Lovely to see you.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you.
So thank you very much for joining. And for those people that are watching live, and then also those people that will be looking afterwards on the YouTube and the podcast as well. This is going to be a very interesting session. And maybe if I just give it some Davos context as well. So this year we had our 4th Health at Davos conference, and that's as part of maybe 15 other sort of micro conferences we do as part of the unDavos Summit. AI clearly has been one of those topics that since it first popped up, it's never gone away, and it's still there and it's ever present. What's quite fascinating, though, is that in our experience and getting feedback is there's a lot of talk around the big high picture strategy and concepts on AI, but relatively little on what does it mean for me? What does it mean for us? What does it mean for my company in a practical perspective? So that's why after Davos in 23, we started with Stephanie and with some others as well, but it's really doing AI in action workshops and training. This is an evolution and it's going sort of way past down it. What I'll do is I'll actually have sort of Stephanie will be sort of running most of the show. I'm still guiding. But what we're going to be doing then is we're going to do this thing a little bit different. We're not going to take you through lots of slides. We're going to do quite a lot of hands-on work because we're really giving you what is the latest and the greatest in this whole world of AI with an angle looking specifically then at healthcare, but health and the health sector, but others as well. And so with that, I'll say thanks. And then I'll pass over to Stephanie. Okay.
Yes, maybe I should introduce myself. So my background is actually in the health sector, spent many years working for pharma, medtech, and so in Novartis, GSK, Medela, if that rings a bell with some of you. So I have a big passion for really the sector and the value that the sector brings to humanity. But beyond that, what I realize is there is so much potential in all the operations in this sector to actually use AI more effectively. What we're seeing today is marginal gains. So people are using AIs to improve their emails. Maybe they're using it to process or summarize some reports, but that doesn't really move the needle in terms of growth or efficiency in an organization. With the tools out there, there is, however, much more potential to be leveraged in everyday operations. Today, we'll try to actually bring some ideas to you, so inspire you on what you could do tomorrow and try maybe in the next few days and see if that works for you as well. With that, Mark?
Yeah, and for me, for my background, for those of you who don't know me, so I'm the founder of the unDavos community and the unDavos Summit. I'm working a lot with people like Robin and Stephanie to actually make it happen. My background was I worked at Intel and I was looking at collective intelligence and crowdsourcing, so collective, not artificial intelligence. I did an IPO for my first software company and had a lot of clients in pharma, healthcare overall, hospital systems like Cardinal Health. So I have a lot of experience on the sort of solution delivery side. I've been working on AI very concretely for over 10 years in different ways, but then particularly now looking at how to leverage AI, and then now we'll get into AI agents, AI code writing to look at then how to get value. But maybe then should we jump in? And,
Absolutely. I will now still leave my LinkedIn in the chat if I manage to get there. Unfortunately, I don't have an AI to do that for me yet. If you'd like to connect, please feel free. And with this, going into the presentation. So I said, we're not going to have a lengthy presentation with many slides, but still we'd like to introduce the topic a little bit. As said, we run an AI program in Davos during World Economic Forum as well. And one of the things that strikes us is that people are using AIs, but it's really difficult for them to imagine what could it bring to us. It is still early stages. Many are using AIs in everyday life to plan their vacation, but also in business. But imagination on how could we take this to the next level is at the moment quite lacking. And that's why today we'd like to inspire you and at the same time demystify a little bit of those tools and encourage you to start using them much, much, much more for business operations. That being said, we will explore some AI concepts, things we're using ourselves, things we are bringing to our clients and also in our trainings, and then processes that will then immediately benefit from these AI approaches. And when we finish this webinar, I would like you to be able to identify opportunities around you much easier, around you in your companies and with your teams. That said, this webinar should also help you to get started with some of the tools that go beyond ChatGPT or Claude or any LLMs. Well, 3 years ago, we developed this slide when we did our first AI training, and we were actually saying, well, so many companies today are still in the doing business as usual. They're not really looking at AI to help them beyond maybe in manufacturing, very highly technical operations system, but it hasn't reached the general workforce. However, nowadays, we see that the general workforce is using AI tools in their everyday life. So they use it for private purposes, but also for organizational purposes. As I said, the gains at this stage are quite marginal. What we'd like to actually achieve is a strategic organizational approach on using AI in workflows, improving those workflows to be more effective and more efficient, and deliver on business objectives and targets much easier. And that requires to actually understand what are your processes, decompose the processes, and understand how do you use not only a single chat for one query, but a whole set of agents to automate various bits and pieces around those processes and build agent teams. So the gap today is really around moving the needle from personal use or individual using AIs for their own work to actually making it something much more strategic that delivers value for the organization in between step 3 and step 4.
Well, I think then, I mean, it's important to sort of get a feel for the context as well. So the tool set keeps changing, and things that were absolute witchcraft, impossible stuff a year ago, certainly 2 years ago, have suddenly become doable. Now, we all know the sort of the 5-fingered creatures, the 3-legged thing. If you were using AI and Midjourney for making images back in February 2022 and said, make me a picture of a cat in a garden, this is what it would look like. So highly unimpressive, basically impossible. If you then hop forward, and I was just looking at the latest sort of cat things. Let's see if I can share my cat slide. Where's my cat slide gone to?
So basically what we're seeing, and it's easy to demonstrate with images, it's a huge leap forward in technology. Things that were unimaginable 3 years ago. I don't know if you remember the videos of Will Smith eating spaghettis. Everyone saw these videos and it looked quite awkward in the beginning. If you look at those videos today, and there's at the moment something circulating on Instagram on this one, that looks extremely realistic and non-distinguishable from real image or footage. But here we're seeing another, even new purpose of AI, the usage.
I don't know if you can hear the audio?
No, we cannot hear the audio.
Oh, it's in Chinese. You don't really hear it. So here there's a whole set of new ways of creating content. So the content is designed for Instagram. These are 1-minute episodes and they're involving cat actors. So within just 4 years, we've gone from this horrible, messy gloop of a creature into whatever cat romance.
Cat romance. And cat boy groups, cat boy groups, and cat chicken.
People with chickens. So, but look at the quality, look at the speed, and these tools have become democratized. So the things that basically 4 years ago, I mean, if you ever anybody trying to make an image with words on it, was basically impossible before. Now these things are not only easy, but you can make full-blown videos, audio, so many things. But that's important to bear in mind because right now this pace of change has been crazy, but that then has a further implication, and that is every 3 months, there's a dramatic improvement. So, and in fact, 3 months ago, when we were working on agents, it was still you needed to have a very strong, high level of professional expertise and domain knowledge to be able to do things. Now, as we will actually talk through and give you some worked examples, the stuff is almost sort of not, it's not out of the box, but it's out of the box for those people that are able to think. And we'll be teaching you how to think.
But actually, why bother? So
Well,
beyond,
there are many reasons why to bother.
Yes.
And one of the things is sometimes actually when this goes back, so back in 23 after Davos, and Stephanie and I had connected, but Stephanie was busy writing an RFP for OECD, and that was going to take 30 or 40 hours to write the RFP. So I said, look, I'll tell you what, I think we could actually sort of work together and do some AI projects, but you need to save some time. So I'll tell you what, give me half an hour and I will teach you some magic AI tricks. And if you're able to save any time with the AI tricks, you can invest that time into learning more about AI and working out how it can teach people. And so that meant that a 40 hours worth of task went down to 6 hours. You won the RFP as well, and that created some free time. So one of the big uses is saving time.
And everybody remembers the times when we were talking about AIs hallucinating a lot. And well, while this problem hasn't disappeared completely, it's still out there. It feels though that there are techniques right now that will allow us to catch the mistakes and catch things that are maybe not quite correct when the AI pretends this is the truth. So here we'll show you some techniques around how to do this as well by using expert personas, so synthetic personas, that will be able to identify what is wrong in this thing that the AI has spit out.
So, but that could also be catching mistakes that, let's say, not the AI's fault, but it's a human fault. So I've recently been reviewing NDA documents and fundraising documents for certain types of companies, and the basic quality of human-generated content is really pretty poor because it misses out particular edge cases and use cases. So even if it can't give you the definitive answer, more judicial use of AI allows us to not make as many mistakes. It allows us to improve quality, and also means we can do it ourselves. So you don't need to make a call to that expensive lawyer to help you out. You can pass the document over and say, should I sign this NDA?
Which again creates other problems because the amount of work that is created through AIs, and we're actually currently working on a case where people are generating complaint letters, massive or a lot of complaint letters to the extent that some organizations can't actually process them anymore and need AIs to actually process those complaint letters. So while you rely less on others, we need to rely much more on AIs moving forward.
So we're going to get into some particular areas where we've seen huge benefits. We've seen with some unique ways of using AI. How do you get feedback faster? So how do you get feedback from experts, from humans? Because it allows us to iterate, try things out, come up with better quality content, but do it much, much faster. And I think hopefully we'll have some time. We can even talk about how AI these days allows us to do things that were impossible, but now they actually become relatively, let's say, not necessarily easy, but almost close to being easy.
Yeah, and this is where we'd like to challenge everyone here. While you're using the AIs to do things that you know already, like writing emails, like correcting letters or writing complaint letters to your tenants. Maybe some people do that. So we'd like to challenge you to think beyond those general use cases and think about all all the activities, tasks, deliverables you'd like to achieve that were impossible for you in the past, but now you can actually attempt to do this. So Mark here, who isn't a musician, released an album most recently, just because he attempted to do something very impossible, create great music using AIs.
Yep. And if anybody would like to listen, but I'll actually share the link in here. There we are. Let you have a listen. Okay. Thank you.
And we are using this model. So this is a very full slide with a lot of stages in there. But it's quite important to understand that beyond using the tools like ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude or Gemini as a coworker or expert for diverse tasks, so give you, for instance, ideas for a website or craft copy for a newsletter, etc. So individual one-off tasks, a lot of these things are recurring. A lot of the things that you are doing are recurring. For instance, you could writing a blog would be recurring. Creating a webinar like this one is a recurring task, and that requires, or parts of it can be standardized. And this is what we call creating an AI playbook. You can use custom GPTs to do this, or other approaches as well.
And then we have different things that are going on from there. So then you have, let's say, sort of automating stuff. So simple tasks that you might do again and again. But then you can see how, let's say, AI does it with a twist. So I'm building an agent for my personal assistant agent. One thing I like to do is actually classify all of my mails into, let's say, 10 different types of things. Well, if I use the Gmail filter, it's pretty dumb. It does basically a text match. So if I say finance is different from financial. And so right now, the sort of dumb searching is just not good. But if we have an AI-powered filter, an AI-powered workflow, it'll say, if the thing seems like it contains something to do with finance, such as banking or credit cards, but it doesn't look like spam, then please put it over here. So we have these simple automation agents. We actually use many of them in unDavos right now. And such as when anybody books meeting time with me, we have an agent that not only has added it to the calendar, that's easy, but we check, are they in the CRM system? And if not, please add. And then it even, based on somebody's LinkedIn, does a research report for me as a Google Doc that I get into my sort of a Telegram inbox, so that I can find out everything about the person before I meet them. So things that were time consuming beforehand are almost impossible. Now as automating, it just runs again and again and again. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, and then building agents can take various characteristics. We can also start to automate, for instance, industry news reports and create LinkedIn posts on the fly based on the content. So basically on the unDavos Summit, we have a big automation of every marketing task at hand, and based on the content that is gathered through our Fireflies, what's it called?
Fireflies for the transcript.
The
and then we also
transcript tools, yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so but it can get complicated quite quickly, but it's replicating the things that we have. But we've been able to capture our voice, capture the transcripts, capture the videos, cut the videos, make a LinkedIn post, share it, and automatically generate podcasts, etc., etc. So we're pretty much operating as though we're a team of 4 or 5 people, but it's really a part-time work. But we put the effort in to design these agents and these agent teams to actually do all of the work for us. So we're acting more like a 20-person organization, not a 1.5, 2-people organization.
Mm-hmm. And while we were using no-code tools or even coding a few years back to create apps, today it's become accessible for anyone to create an app. And I'll show you something that we built to prepare for this webinar today. A simple little app that will create, it's an ROI calculator. So the tools that are out there, ready to be used, and you don't need coding skills.
Well, and maybe then if I share that before people get, let's say, scared about building an app. So I needed to go through my accounts, and I had 700 entries that I had to validate what category was it to fill in my chart of accounts. That before in the spreadsheet would take me hours and hours and hours, and it's painful work. I decided instead to use Claude Code, which we'll get to in the end, to say, please build me an app that I can use where I can automatically fill things in. I can do it from a drop down. And I not only built the app, but I did all the work in 30 minutes. So this is things that used to take me hours and hours. I built a mini app that worked perfectly well that I can already use for next year. But we do have a framework though. So maybe as we get into this, here are the different steps that we'll be going through that you can iterate through as well to say, well, okay, based on all of this stuff, what do we do?
Yeah, so we did actually also use an AI to look at the participant list of today's webinar. And what occurred to us is there is a big variety of profiles that are attending this call today. So we decided to not go into one single use case that is only relevant for one type of profile, but using something much broader. And if you want to take a screenshot, this is the slide to actually screenshot right now, because this outlines the general process that we go through to build tools that scale and are able to automate a lot of our workflows. And the first step is we identify a business need. While in the past I would have, so I mentioned I was in large corporates before, would have a lot of meetings. Of course, my agenda was completely full with meetings. And even now with all the clients, before you start a project, you identify the need and need to understand what is it that we really need? What is the problem? And frame that in some way. Today, use the AIs, use the tools outdoor, collaborate with them to frame the problem in 10 minutes. And then strategize on what could be a solution. And beyond then the strategy, this is where many people stop. We can use multiple tools to conduct in-depth research and provide substantiated advice on how to bring this strategy to life. We can use or build experts, so synthetic experts, people that are fake but mimic the behavior and have the knowledge of particular experts, such as UX designers, or it could be physiotherapists, or it could be regulatory experts for, I don't know, diabetes. So ultimately, we can build these synthetic experts, and research of major universities has shown that the responses of such experts actually are very close to the ones of real or human experts. AIs, yes.
Well, actually, so should we actually, I mean, maybe if we do something a little bit different, should we actually just do this all as a work demo and just go through step by step? Because then I think we'll be able to see how these things work and fit in, because we'll get to the artifacts and the other things as well, but should we get started?
We will get started. Right. So our challenge today will be to work on a ROI calculator for AI. So what is the ROI of AI? We did build it a little bit in before to test it out. But I mean, ultimately, it's quite easy because we have an empty page syndrome. I am not a CFO of any company, so I don't know much about ROI calculators and of AI ROI calculators, but I would like to build such a tool. So the first thing I will do is strategize and collaborate with a tool like ChatGPT to ask, okay, or to give it instruction and ask for help. How would you do this?
Well, and as we go through this, so also, I mean, other tools that we use to brainstorm. So we have Fireflies being added into this thing right now. So right now, all of our calls tend to have one of the AIs come in. We can then discuss as humans, what type of things do we have, what are the needs. Then we can download the transcript afterwards. And then not only ask the question in here, but we could even say, here's the transcript we've discussed. How do we then pull together all of the pieces? Our human discussion, and then some AI ideas to do this. And part of the reason why I'm suggesting that, so we actually find more and more that we're using voice to interact with the AIs, certainly on the phone, but then also on the computer as well. And then also having these team meetings too. So for the human collaborative process.
So the first step would ask a tool like ChatGPT, and now I'm writing a very long but a very bad prompt, saying we would like to build an ROI calculator. How would you approach this task? It should be a little app on our website and should be used by executives to evaluate if the AI investment is worth pursuing.
And so remember, this is the phase where we have a business idea. We're trying to create a business concept. Many of us will have this, whether it's a new marketing initiative that we're trying to do, a way of increasing sales, a way of doing internal process improvement. So we're starting off, and this is the classic ChatGPT, we're having a conversation.
And that should give us ideas on how to approach this task. Now, we've done this before, and I use extended thinking a lot because the quality of the output is much deeper and much better, and it reasons around the task much more. It would come up with high quality advice than if I didn't. For tasks like this, which can be quite complicated, and I don't want to spend half an hour explaining them. But ultimately, we want to pull together a research-backed approach, which means we need to conduct research. And all of you have done this probably in the past by using the research tools in ChatGPT. But ultimately, we will here, and this is one of the things that we strongly recommend, the AI tools nowadays have developed different expertise areas, much more than they used in the past. So they have a much higher quality output if they are designed for a specific task. And Perplexity is one of the tools that is actually doing research quite well across various across their whole database of information that they have. And so asking ChatGPT for the approach and then asking ChatGPT for what would be the prompt for Perplexity. And here is the prompt that ChatGPT has created with everything that is relevant for this task. So after the strategizing part, it will then, if you give it instructions of what sector should it be in, about what should be the ROI calculator, what type of workflows should it be covering, etc., but also what type of report should the AI bring back. It will give you a very long prompt like this one. And then let's try it. Do it again in Perplexity to get the research.
So, I mean, if we imagine this to be people, now let's imagine you've got somebody in your team that's just really, really good at creative ideas, and then somebody that's really good at executing. Sometimes it's not the same person. We kind of use AIs, the different AI tools in the same way. So that some AI tools are very, very good at doing research, some are good at graphics. And so right now, over time, you end up with your favorite tools. And then you can pass content between one and the other. And this, particularly if it's something that you might do again and again, so this type of, well, I need to do some research, I need to come up with some benefits. This is where we get into the world of what we call a playbook. Because it's just the way that you do work around here, and it's something that you might repeat. So there we go, you have a whole bunch of stuff.
Whole bunch of stuff, and I forgot to actually click on deep research here, but I did that in the previously, and my ChatGPT has a folder where the deep research has been actually built in as the resource. So basically, this research is quite encompassing, and it is quite. It doesn't want to download it right now. Okay, never mind. We'll skip that. So it's quite encompassing. It's really not suitable to develop a product out of it. So the next step then is, well, now we have the research. And what does the research say? How can we transform this into a product? So then what can be done is use the AI to synthesize all the research. So here is the research, and then create a prompt to synthesize the research and develop a product definition, a product specs of how could this ROI calculator be configured based on what we have learned from this research. Now, needless to say that I only skimmed the research in this step. I didn't actually go through all the details. I will only go through the details that are then, for me, questionable or less relevant or relevant to understand.
So, and remember with our framework, we start off with the business need. We've now done some research. And now we're going to create one of these artifacts, which might be a product document, a concept sheet, or something. So these are the first steps we're doing. But now we're going to go more hardcore, because ultimately we aren't ROI experts. We're not tool experts. We don't know how to write code on this thing. So what's our next step in the process?
Well, I mean, it gives me all this information in the chat thread. What am I going to do with it? It's too much information. So I ask it to actually transform this into a downloadable file. And here again, ChatGPT doesn't have extreme capabilities in this space. It creates a markdown file for me, AI ROI Calculator version 1 specs. But if you did that in Claude, you would actually get a Word document or a PDF or something very nicely built. But since we're not experts in that, we need to create the experts. So that means, that being said, can you suggest experts that are able to stress test and assess and also provide feedback on the specs of our ROI calculator? Okay, it will suggest various types of experts. Now, in this very specific example, what I then used, I said, well, we need to use this for internal purposes. So I then developed experts that I wanted to have the CFO feedback, and developed a persona, a CFO persona here to review the specifications of the product specs of the ROI calculator and issue a report of, well, what would it do better or differently?
Well, and at this point, then, I mean, imagine we're replicating, let's say, a human process. So that means that, okay, generally, if we're doing something, we don't necessarily have all the expertise. And even if we did, maybe we want to get a patent attorney to look at something, or we'd like to have somebody that knows how to use SAP integration tools. And we don't have the expertise. Well, generally speaking, we'd ask a human. But right now, what we're finding is that the AI is generally really quite good at saying, well, okay, for this research that you've done, for this type of product you're doing, here would be 10 types of experts that could be valuable for you. And those people could be content experts. So they're an expert in whatever ROI for AI, but they could also be different types of experts, such as a user design expert. One that I use a lot is my sense checking expert. And my sense checking expert is designed to read every sentence and every paragraph and every section of text to see, does it make any sense? But right now, we're pretty much getting AIs to play this virtual role of a virtual synthetic person, but then to explicitly be part of our process, like part of our work team.
And to be part of our work team, we need to actually open a new chat for it, give it that role, give it the instruction of what to do with the specification, and provide the feedback on it. And this is what we did in our folder again. The experts that we had review the ROI calculator specification that was developed from this from the research, or the CFO, the UX designer, the innovation person, the compliance experts, chief operation officer. All these people generated a report. So they did an in-depth review, generated a report, and provided a feedback on the specifications. And then we are mimicking here basically a business process. Some teams use this similar process to get through the first round of interaction with their boss. So instead of booking a meeting with their boss, they would just create a persona that thinks like their boss, and then say, well, look at my presentation. What questions would you ask me? And then improve the presentation in the first round before actually booking a meeting and have less time in the meeting. I've spoken to people and advised people to actually do the same thing when they interview for for a new job. And basically, you can download people's profiles on LinkedIn, feed it into the AI, and ask it to mimic that behavior. If you are now in a large organization with a lot of market research data, or if you work in a sector where there is a lot of market research data readily available out there, well, you can also run a deep research on these experts' profiles, needs, pains, gains, etc. Or you could feed this research to the tool to actually develop the persona based on that. Various approach, but the key essence is here. Well, use the knowledge that the AI has to advise you on the next step in your project. And that's applicable for many, many different tasks. It could also be for an innovation that you're developing, for a marketing asset that you want to publish, etc.
Or a techno song. So in
Or
fact,
a
maybe
techno
like
song.
the thing that always strikes me, so I decided to make some techno, and I was getting feedback from humans, and the first piece of feedback that I had on my first song is, the song's not very good. Well, at this point then, I'm trying to work out if I should be crying or whatever. And it then just turns out that particular person didn't like techno, so it didn't matter what it was, as long as it was techno, the answer was going to be no. So that's where we see, so instead I have Sven, my electronic dance music expert from Imaginary Berlin, who's given me the expert feedback, which is much, much better for me to do my work. So this is, and in addition to that, even though the expert feedback isn't concretely, specifically, factually correct, after all, we're only asking for opinion that even a human would just have an opinion. The key thing then is that generally it's extremely good and it's extremely fast. So fast that we can quite quickly incorporate it and even synthesize it into our research, our plans, and everything else, and come up with a new iteration in an hour's time.
Indeed, and this is what this next step is actually the synthesis of all these expert reports. We now issued a CFO report, COO, UX report, etc. All of them had a different perspective on this ROI calculator. Well, what do we do with that? Somebody's got to actually make sense out of it. So created another persona to do the synthesis of it and say, okay, review what they said. And then at the end of the day, summarize, but don't only summarize what they say, make a recommendation as to what are the changes that we should implement, and should we go to the next stage with this tool. So as you can see at the end, one of the recommendation was an executive summary, what is strong, what is the concerns, what are the critical changes that the experts provided before building? And then the final decision after the synthesis, approve with changes, or revise before building, or just stop could also be one.
Well, and maybe then if we look at, let's say, synthesis as a task that many organizations have to do in health, like for other businesses, is that quite often it's just mentally extremely hard to have 10 different things that you're meant to pull together where they didn't all fill in the right bit of the form at the right time. You want to sometimes integrate, sometimes merge, adapt, get rid of. You want to make sure that you've read everything so you don't miss out some potentially important piece of information. So synthesis itself is a tough manager's job to do. AI, particularly with the way that we're describing with the use of these experts to help, really, really helps and simplifies the synthesis work. So it's a very important part of the process.
And then revising the specs. So we went now within half an hour in 3 different iterations. We had an expert feedback. We had from a version 1 specs. We had an expert feedback. We had a synthesis done of the feedback. We reviewed with the CEO who looks at strategic fit with what our organizations want to achieve, and makes a call on what are the changes to do and provides a new set of specs that we are going to use to build this new tool. Now I'm going to have to go back here. So starting from a business need, we went through this first few stages, and also the verification was done by the expert, trying to see what is it that we're trying to achieve. Does that match of what I know about that topic?
Maybe a couple of little tips that come in here. So one tip is then to set up a chat thread to say, you're an expert at finding mistakes. I'm going to give you a document. I know there are 3 mistakes in this document. Please find them. You don't have to say what the mistakes are, but right now, one of the things you can do this manually is that we can use AI's ability to go through content to find errors and mistakes. But I think moreover, as we'll get into, let's say, doing it programmatically, you can actually build in these verification stages with different AI platforms. So Claude is checking what OpenAI does. And by having these different experts to actually have them look from specific directions.
And yeah, what do we do with this? We wanted to build this little tool, wanted to build a tool that would be useful to people and creating a version 1 of it. One way to do it is to say, let's do a 1-pager and drop the specs into Claude and say, Claude, give me a wonderful 1-pager with of this. The other way, the way I do it is actually, let's just build the tool. The tools are out there and it's quite easy to use them. Now, while you may need some help to set it up properly the first time and to get started, once you're in there, it's a rabbit hole. Your wife or husband will think you have an affair with Claude Code because you'll spend days and nights with Claude Code. And that's what's happening to many people amongst us. So what do we do now? What do we show now? Let me go back to actually sharing my desktop. So based on the specs, now what you're seeing here, Mark, you need to help me. This is Claude Code. This is where the real magic happens today. 2 years ago, we're still building apps in no-code tools. Now we are chatting with a tool. Now it looks a bit overwhelming, but it's actually very, very easy to build something in this interface.
Well, yeah, so maybe then if we frame this thing out. So this is where this was impossible for normal people to do at all, even 6 months ago. So right now, then what's happening is that even if it looks a little bit, I mean, it's more complicated than Claude for sure. I mean, it's not quite as nice looking. The thing though is that right now we're going to basically be having a chat, not writing in any line of text or any line of code, but we're just having a chat in a slightly different interface. But then we're not just saying, how might I do this? Please give me some ideas. We're saying, well, okay, well, could you build it for me? So what we've done here is that there's 2 pieces. And I mean, I'll simplify. One thing is that, so in order for us to have files, write programs, and write agents, we need a container. So we've been using anti-gravity from Google. It's free to use. So anti-gravity is our container, but there's also Cursor and other containers that you can have. Once you have a container, you need a way of actually having a chat, and then you want to have a way of writing code. And so right now, this is anti-gravity. And within anti-gravity here, we have Claude Code. And right now, I see, Stephanie, that you just put in a little chat saying, can you give me a summary of how we built the ROI calculator?
Well, the ROI calculator was already built, and you can test it here. The version 1 is here. I'm not yet happy with what it is, but I mean, given that we built this in maybe an hour or 2, it's incredible. It's in the chat here. You can have a look. The iterations now will happen directly in Claude Code. So in this interface, and the improvements will happen in this interface. So while before we had the experts in a separate chat and then copy-pasted things back and forth, as of now that I have my little tool out there, what I will do, and this was built beforehand, I will do my UX conversion review, another expert that will actually go onto the ROI calculator and provide UX advice on what is it that we need to change. And then I can tell the tool, do it, just do it, because I don't know how to do these things. So it summarizes the brand. And by the way, if you went onto the website, if you're here, everything here, the color, the gray, all of this, I didn't design this manually. I basically told Claude, go onto the website, retrieve the brand or create the brand guidelines for fresh strategy, and then use that to instruct anti-gravity or Claude Code to build the calculator in the same brand language. And so the fonts are correct. All of this is correct. Now, we're not quite happy with these options that it is providing here, but also for that, I now have another expert in anti-gravity that will go into the content review. I'm not going to click enter because it will interrupt the other workflow. It will go into the content review and then provide content optimization potential. Does it make sense what is on there? Is it delivering on the needs of people? So basically, these are consumers or users that are doing the review for me, but it's built as a little Python tool.
Maybe then if we just take a little step back and if we have a look at this app that we're building. So generally speaking, to make an app like that, probably we were doing this maybe 4 years ago, would cost around $10,000 to $15,000 to make. Maybe you can get away with something for $3,000 or $4,000. If you want to make a change, you'd have to go back to your developer, explain what it is, and every change is going to cost you another sort of few hundred or a few thousand to build it. You don't have product market fit when you first come out, so you need to get more feedback from the market. When you finally get people to come in and go use it, frankly, that takes a lot of effort. And doing development of these sort of consistent sort of either workflows or digital products used to be hell on wheels. Now it's faster. Now, I think where we're here, it's still doing the content review.
It's still doing, it's doing the UX review at the moment, but while we're here, what we can look at is other processes that I have been automating. So what we see here, blog articles, there's a tool that generates, or there is the blog article generating process, and it creates then the code HTML for my website. So I just copy paste it over. It does the SEO. You will see here my SEO strategy. Everything SEO strategy and implementation. I have to do some of the implementation manually because there's no connection to the provider of my website at the moment yet. But it is helping me dramatically, whereas before there was there was nobody doing this. We didn't have resources to do that. It built, and this is a case, business case finder, or a case, basically workflow case finder, but I can send that to you after this call, which is a tool that I built where you enter what am I doing, what is my profession, what type of sector am I in, what type of typical workflows or work do I do, and then it will tell you, give you ideas on where could you use AI workflow tools, or how could you improve your workflow with AI. I have my whole business strategy, go to market, and there's one other thing I wanted to show, which isn't in this folder, it's in another folder. It's the AI readiness assessment. So on the website, if you are on it, there is also an AI readiness assessment tool here. We'll paste it into our chat here. Would encourage everyone to actually also take it to understand where you stand today, where does your organization stand today, and get ideas on what is it that you get started with. Where should you look? And then if that's a bit overwhelming for you, just reach out and we can have a chat to discuss your specific challenge.
Well, and I can also show you just sort of a little bit about sort of some of the things. This is we said that we wanted to inspire you. There's a vision that I've had is that I want to be everywhere at the same time at a conference, but obviously I can't be, but I'd love to do it live. So here's something where I think I could do this. So I am at a conference, I'm listening to people. I will then see, is the content coming up? Because now I've actually built my own Fireflies using Claude Code, and now I could export the content to make summaries, etc., etc.
Are you sharing screen?
Yes, I was sharing the full screen. Did you see it?
Okay. I didn't, but maybe that's just me.
Can my screen be shared? I should be sharing the whole thing. But so what happened is that here I used anti-gravity, and it was a little bit like the old days. I had my anti-gravity set up a little bit differently. Just like in the old days of using AI, we would look at somebody on LinkedIn posting a cool use of AI, and then we would, let's say, try to use it in prompt or mid-journey. Well, here I saw somebody on LinkedIn had created this same Gladiator speech to text, and so I just said to Claude, make it for me. Right now, I decided, wouldn't it be nice to make reports in a nicer way? I've read about something called latex PDF, and I just said, well, I've never heard of latex PDF, make it for me. I'm not coding, I'm not doing anything else, but all of these things are different projects that I have. And so what it allows you to do, and even if I look at, but then once you begin to get your head around it, so a lot of this is a mindset. I found that right now I can build testing into my apps. So I can say, okay, here is a new feature. How do I test it? I can build a quality or health check in, and I just click that, and it basically does all the tests for me. So I'd like to have a notification system, make one for me, and it does it. Cool. But sharing this in that if we look at the variety of things that Stephanie has shown in that work, I can show you a completely different set around music, video, and everything else. We're using the same tool set. We're using the same method of having a business need. We're using synthesis. We're using experts. We're creating artifacts. We're making workflows. But right now, our mindset is maybe a little bit further advanced, but we're using the same tools that all of you have. Same tools. I think then where we then begin to look at is that when Stephanie is showing the ROI calculator, that's an ROI calculator for AI. But given that we start off by saying, give me some research on ROI for AI, surely, I mean, how would we have done it if we wanted to build an ROI calculator for, let's say, a new hospital system? Probably the same way. But then it could mean that we can quickly imagine, let's imagine an app. So I had an app for my transcription, but let's imagine an app to say, please build it. It's an AI ROI calculator app. And all you do is you type in the subject. Do you want to look at for solar panels, hospital systems? And it would go through all the steps of the process. We hide some of the complexity from the users, but we can still see what the conversation is. But at the end of the day, it could be building apps that fits together with our look and feel and can go onto our website. It's not rocket science, it's witchcraft.
I think you said one very true sentence, Mark, which was, we are all using the same tools, but the question is, how smart are we using the same tools to actually make our work easier, faster, and grow our business better than others? And what we're saying here is a distinction between the ones that are just using the tools and the ones that are using the tools in a creative way that will make them, that will almost create a synergy between the human and the AI. And this is a concept we call the cyborg professional. If you'd like to explore that idea more, there is also a blog post on this one, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what do you think about cyborg professionals, and would you like to become a cyborg professional?
And I think as well, at the same time, I'm showing this, I'm going to do this thing deliberately. So gradually, we're now seeing more and more AIs enter into more and more applications. The problem is that some of it is still crap. So right now, we'll see what happens. So we tried to do this thing earlier there's a nice Google thing, which is into our workspaces now. Microsoft has it as well, to do, let's say, helpful AI things. And we're going to see, I mean, we can see here there's a bold, there's some things in a different level. And how is it going to help visualize it? Here we go.
And this took the wrong slide.
And it picked the wrong slide. Okay, how can it pick the wrong slide? I mean, okay, no, beautify this slide.
Well, actually, what we're trying also to say here, this process, so we showed you today deliberately, just one simple process. It can work across industries. While this was about health operations, we realized the variety of profiles in this call is quite big. So we focused on something that could be useful for anyone out there. We will have more webinars coming up, more specifically on maybe not an industry, but a very specific sector like pharma or medtech or hospitals, because then there are different use cases in there. But this type of process, as you see it here and nicely done with Nana Banana, is one of the key tricks that are applicable across many, many different use cases and industries. So with this, I think we're running out of time, Mark. These are our contacts. So if you'd like to be in touch, please feel free to reach out. We're on LinkedIn. And we're also on email. And then if you are interested in knowing more about AI agents and everything else, we do a lot of trainings around that, because we all want to enable people to become innovation cyborgs as we are aiming to become.
Well, and I think as well, so, and definitely thank you very much for this, is that come back in 3 months' time, there'll be a different set of answers because the tools and technologies do change. I think it's also, it's a little bit hard for us to come up with something that could be generally applicable or specific. Like the area of healthcare is it's a gigantic sector. And within there, everybody's got all kinds of different things. What we've really tried to do is give you a sense of how doable these uses of AI are, how much it's mindset driven and an understanding. We're still using the same tool set, we're just thinking about it in different ways. But I mean, maybe then what I'd urge you all to do is find places in your day job or whatever it is that takes you time, where it's, let's say, non-enjoyable time, but it's like if you could save yourself 3 or 4 hours a week. Find a way of saving yourself 3 or 4 hours a week. And there's Claude Cowork. Microsoft has got also some studios to do whatever AI things or calendar things. But when you're saving that time, don't just use it to have another meeting. Use it to then create some time and space in your head to start doing some experiments, to start looking at, let's say, things either where it's ideas that you want to explore, or because what's happening with today's technology is that things that were completely impossible, outrageously expensive, and are basically free. So I urge you all to create some time to sort of play. And yes, definitely, if you'd like to get in touch, we've also done some personal consulting sessions. We've done training that we do for companies as well. And then we also can do some special projects too.
And we have a newsletter which is called From Hype to Value, because this is what we're aiming to achieve, is unlock the value that the AI can bring to organizations. And that's on my profile on LinkedIn, you'll find it. Or reach out, I'll point you to it.
So thank you ever so much for everybody for doing. Thank you to Robin also and unDavos for hosting as well. Greatly appreciate all of your effort. And please stay in touch, and many more good things to come. Thank you all.
Have a great evening. Thank you, everyone.